Tuesday mornings had a rhythm Judge Cassandra "Cassie" Monroe could have set her watch to. She liked beating the courthouse flood, the attorneys clutching briefcases, the jurors shuffling in with coffee, the bailiffs trading dry jokes under the metal detectors. Her black Cadillac Lyric hummed across the Jefferson County Courthouse lot in Macon, Georgia, sunlight sliding across its hood like a hand-smoothing fabric. On the passenger seat, her leather briefcase, robe neatly folded, judicial ID clipped where it always lived. Nothing about the docket promised fireworks. 2 custody reviews, 1 probation compliance, a preliminary hearing on a pawn shop burglary. A tidy day, if such a thing existed. She signaled into her reserved space and only caught the strobe of blue and red by the way it fractured across the Lyric's side mirror. No siren, just the hard, angular motion of a patrol cruiser cutting across the lane and stopping broadside so tight it would have set off anyone's pulse. The driver's door flung open. "Turn off the engine! Hands on the wheel!" The officer's voice came clipped, automatic. He moved like a conclusion walking toward a period. Cassie froze, then deliberately set both palms at 10 and 2. Quick movements don't read as quick movements when they come from a body like hers. They read as threat. She inhaled slow through her nose, tasted metal. The officer advanced. White, mid-30s, mirrored aviators that reflected her back at herself. The name on his vest said Cole. He didn't announce a reason for the stop. He didn't ask a question. He positioned himself at her front quarter panel, hand hovering near his holster, not quite touching, close enough to matter. "Is there a reason for this?" Cassie asked, voice level. She tapped the window button half an inch, enough to carry sound, not enough to invite misreadings. "I'm Judge Monroe. This is my assigned. Vehicle matches a stolen Lyric out of Warner Robins. No plate displayed," he snapped. "Driver, keep your hands visible." "My registration is in the glove compartment. My ID is hands visible," he repeated, sharper. "We'll confirm." 2 courthouse employees slowed their steps, curiosity snagging their pace. Clara Ruiz from the clerk's office fumbled for her phone, then thought better of it, then didn't, raising it to chest level. A young public defender, Diego Morales, had already stopped under the awning, thumb flying across his screen. Inside, a security camera was angled toward the lot, indifferent and patient. "Officer," Cassie said, "you can verify the tag from dispatch. It's on the rear." "Front plate's missing," he said, as if that settled the universe. In Georgia, front plates weren't required. He either didn't know or didn't care. He moved to the rear, finally. His body language said hurry. His eyes said hunt. Cassie kept breathing, kept her hands where he could see them. She was 49, a black woman, about to walk into a courtroom where her word carried the full weight of the state. Out here, 10 feet from her bench, that weight evaporated like a puddle in August heat. Cole radioed the dispatcher with a plate and VN, voice low, clipped with codes. Procedure, at last. He returned to her window but stayed at a safe angle, the one they teach in training. "Driver, step out of the vehicle," he ordered, "for officer safety." "I can remain seated while you verify," she said evenly. "My judicial ID is right here. You may take it. I won't reach." "That won't be necessary," he said, and then contradicted himself. Actually, slowly, passed the ID through the window. Cassie nodded. "I am going to reach for my briefcase on the seat. Left hand first." She narrated each motion like she was reading a recipe to a nervous child. Unbuckle, lift, open flap. She kept her right hand on the wheel until her left presented the laminated card through the gap. He took it with gloved fingers, eyes finally focusing on something beyond his assumptions. Honorable Cassandra E. Monroe, Jefferson County Superior Court. Appointed 2015. He didn't step back. Didn't apologize. Procedure wouldn't let him. Not yet. "We'll hold here until dispatch confirms," he said, quieter, as if turning the volume down would also lower the temperature. He walked the ID back to his cruiser, typed, waited. The seconds lengthened like taffy. Around them, more movement congealed. A pair of jurors lingering, a maintenance tech pausing with a cart, a bailiff, Harold Dent, at the top of the steps, posture squared, unsure whether to descend. Cassie kept her gaze straight ahead. She'd represented the state, then judged it. She understood the choreography of power, the subtle steps and missteps. But there was nothing subtle about a white officer boxing in a black woman's car and skipping the question that should have come first. "Ma'am, may I see your ID?" The radio crackled from Cole's cruiser. Confirmation was coming. He didn't look at her when he approached again, because the camera on his chest was looking at both of them, and it sees everything except context. "Judge Monroe," he began, using the title for the first time. "I'm going to keep you right here while we clear the alert. Standard understood," she said. It wasn't mercy. It was policy. Belated, partial, imperfect. He positioned himself less aggressively now, angle looser, hand off the holster. The air felt less like a wire pulled tight. But the damage was already developing like film in solution. Slow, inevitable. Clara kept recording, not with the glee of a gotcha, but with the quiet terror of recognition. If it could happen to her, it could happen to me. Diego sent a message to the Public Defender Association's state account, which, unlike most office accounts, had real reach. Inside, the courthouse security feed captured a steady, judicially unflattering wide shot of the lot. 3 angles, whether anyone wanted them or not. Dispatch came back. Plate and VIN matched a registered vehicle to Judge Cassandra Monroe. The stolen Lyrique in Warner Robins had a different VIN and a dealer temp tag, not a county permit sticker on the windshield. Cole's jaw ticked. His radio reply was audible but muted by the hush that follows a near miss. "Copy. Cancel the alert for this vehicle." He returned her ID. "You can proceed to your day, Your Honor." A pause. "For the record, I had to verify." "For the record," Cassie said, eyes steady. "You could have started by asking my name." He didn't answer. He couldn't. Not to her. Not to the camera. She gathered her robe, stepped out, and moved toward the stairs with the same measured calm she used to deliver rulings that altered lives. Behind her, murmurs knitted themselves into something heavier than gossip. Inside, Harold Dent met her at the magnetometer with a subtle nod that said, "Are you all right?" She nodded back. "I'm intact." Not unshaken. By the time her gavel struck at 9:07 a.m., the courthouse had already done what courthouses always do, absorbed the extraordinary into the ordinary. But beyond its doors, a different process had started. The Public Defender Association retweeted Diego's sober caption and Clara's clipped video. A legal influencer with 400,000 followers quote-tweeted it with one line. She had to produce a robe and a title to be seen. The spread wouldn't be instant legend. It didn't need to be. It just needed to be true long enough to be verified. By 10:30 a.m., the morning's hearings were done. Cassie Monroe returned to chambers with the sense that every eye in the building had been tracking her movements since she stepped off the courthouse steps. Not the kind of attention that came from authority, but the kind that came from a fresh, half-whispered headline. She'd been through her share of courtroom politics. Judges can be celebrities in small towns without ever asking. But this was different. Even the attorneys who normally lingered to chat kept their voices low and their questions vague, as if the walls had ears. Which, given how courthouse gossip worked, they did. Cassie didn't check her phone until she was alone behind her desk. 15 missed calls from numbers she knew. Law school friends, 2 former clerks, and 1 from her niece, who rarely dialed without texting first. More than 20 unread text messages, most short and urgent. It's everywhere. Are you okay? Someone's already making a thread. On her email's front page sat a message from a name she recognized, Thomas Avery, a civil rights litigator she hadn't spoken to in years. If you need representation or want to talk strategy, call me. I saw the video. You kept it together. Don't let them frame it as a misunderstanding. She scrolled past it and tapped the browser icon. In seconds, she found the clip, Clara's footage, sitting on Twitter under the caption, "Judge blocked, mistaken for car thief outside her own court." Under it, more than 1,800 retweets, 4,000 likes, and hundreds of comments, most seething. It wasn't the quantity that struck her, it was the clarity. People weren't confused about what they were seeing. This isn't about plates. This is about profile. If she needs a robe to be believed, what chance do the rest of us have? Procedures are just excuses you pick after you've already decided. Some comments defended Officer Cole, calling it due diligence or a mistake anyone could make. But the defensive tone was drowned out by people trading their own stories, being stopped in their own neighborhoods, questioned in front of their kids, asked to prove they belonged. By noon, the Public Defender Association's repost had crossed platforms, ending up on a large Instagram account that specialized in legal reform news. Their caption was pointed, "If a sitting judge's ID is ignored until the third request, how many IDs never even get a glance?" Cassie's phone buzzed again, this time with a text from her wife, Patrice. "Don't check comments too long. You know what they'll do to your head. We'll talk tonight." Meanwhile, across town, Officer Brandon Cole was being walked into an internal affairs conference room. His captain, Andrea Malloy, was already inside, along with a legal liaison from the department. They weren't hostile, but the tone was clipped, procedural. "Walk us through exactly why you initiated the stop," Malloy said. "Dispatch pinged me about a stolen black lyric out of Warner Robins," Cole replied. "No front plate on hers, matched the color and model. I was in range. Did you verify the rear plate before engaging?" He shifted in his chair. "I went to block her first. Officer safety. If it was stolen..." "That's not procedure, Brandon," Malloy cut in. "That's escalation before verification." Cole kept his jaw tight. "I didn't know she was a judge." "That," the liaison said evenly, "shouldn't matter at all." Internal Affairs didn't accuse him outright, but they didn't have to. In the age of 3-camera footage, every detail would be parsed in public, whether or not it made it into an official report. Back at the courthouse, Cassie stepped into the break room for tea and found Diego Morales waiting. He'd been the one under the awning that morning, thumbs moving fast. "They're going to run this story nationally," Diego said quietly. "One of the legal reform accounts I follow already tagged CNN." Cassie studied him for a moment. "And you sent it to them?" "I did," he said without flinching. "Because it's bigger than you. No offense." "None taken," she said, and meant it. She wasn't naive about how bias worked. She just hadn't expected to be the day's prime exhibit. By 4 p.m., the story had left Macon's borders. A short write-up appeared on the Atlanta Ledger's site. Judge Monroe detained in courthouse lot. Officer cites mistaken vehicle ID. The article was careful, even bland, but it linked to Clara's video, and from there, the raw footage did the rest of the talking. Cassie didn't plan on giving interviews, not yet. But as she closed her office blinds that evening, one comment she'd read earlier refused to leave her head. "I taught my son to be polite, keep his hands visible, speak calmly. I used to think that was enough. But if a judge can be treated like this, what chance does he have?" She powered off her phone and sat in silence. The courthouse was empty now, its echo hollow and familiar. Outside, the video was still traveling, quietly for some, urgently for others. Inside, she realized something she'd been resisting all day. Staying silent might protect her in the short term, but it wouldn't protect anyone else. Tomorrow would bring more calls, more headlines, more scrutiny. But tonight, Cassie allowed herself to sit with the truth. She hadn't been seen that morning. Not as a judge, not even as a citizen, just as a suspicion in a high-end car. And suspicion, she knew, didn't fade without a fight. By Wednesday morning, the video wasn't just making the rounds online. It was being dissected on talk radio, slotted into news bumpers between weather updates and traffic reports. In Macon, people who'd never met Cassie Monroe were now trading takes on her calm under pressure or luck she had that badge. In barbershops and break rooms, the story came with knowing nods from those who'd lived some version of it. At 8:45 a.m., Cassie sat in her chambers, sipping coffee that had gone lukewarm while she scanned her inbox. The Jefferson County Bar Association had issued a statement, carefully worded, supportive but neutral. The state's Judicial Council remained silent. The city's mayor, Rochelle Temple, had given a brief quote to a local paper. "We are reviewing all facts before making comment," which in political language meant, "We're waiting to see where the wind blows." But outside City Hall, the wind was already changing. By noon, about 40 residents had gathered in front of the Macon Police Department. Not a protest with chants and megaphones, but a silent stand. They carried hand-lettered signs. "Ask first, assume never." Bias has no badge, and she had to flash a robe to be seen. A few were courthouse employees, careful to stand where the cameras couldn't catch their faces clearly. Inside the department, Captain Andrea Malloy had a problem on her desk. An investigative request from the Macon Sentinel had just landed, asking for public records on Officer Brandon Cole's disciplinary history. Malloy knew what those files contained, a string of complaints that had been not sustained but never fully cleared. 4 for improper stops, 2 for unprofessional conduct, and 1 that explicitly alleged racial bias during a traffic stop. Officially, those findings were closed. Unofficially, they were tinder in the wrong kind of wind. By mid-afternoon, a bigger match struck. The Georgia Observer, an Atlanta-based investigative outlet, published a piece headlined, "Officer in Judge Monroe Incident Has History of Civilian Complaints." It didn't spill every detail, internal files weren't fully public, but it quoted 3 residents by name. One was Rodney James, a high school history teacher who said Cole had pulled him over in front of his own driveway 2 years ago. "Told me my brake light was flickering. It wasn't. I told him I taught at Central High, and he said, 'You people always say that.'" Rodney had filed a complaint. "Never heard back," he told the reporter. The article didn't accuse the department of covering for Cole, but it didn't have to. The timeline spoke for itself. 7 years, 15 complaints, 0 formal discipline. By 5 p.m., the hashtags #sign Judge Monroe and #sign Ask Before Assume were trending regionally. The Macon NAACP chapter issued a statement calling for an independent review of the incident and of MPD's stop protocols. In the courthouse cafeteria, Cassie sat with 2 other judges she trusted, Marion Fields, who'd been on the bench nearly 2 decades, and Ellis Carter, a former public defender turned magistrate. Both were black, both had their own stories. "You know this isn't new," Marion said quietly. "It's just rare they catch it on 3 angles with someone the system can't dismiss." "I got stopped in my own subdivision last year," Ellis added. "Out jogging. Officer said I matched a description." He gave a short, humorless laugh. Description was black male in shorts. Cassie listened, stirring her tea without drinking it. "So what do I do? Stay quiet until it blows over?" "You could," Marion said, "but it won't blow over. It'll just drift. And the next time it happens, they'll say, 'Well, Judge Monroe didn't make a big deal, so why should you?'" Cassie didn't answer. Her phone buzzed again, another number she didn't recognize. She let it go to voicemail. Across town, in a modest 2-bedroom apartment, Brandon Cole sat at his kitchen table, scrolling through the Observer article. His wife had taken their kids to her sister's place for some space. The fridge hummed in the silence. He wasn't surprised the complaints were out, only at how fast they'd been dug up. The department's spokesperson had told him to stay off social media and let the process play out. But the process wasn't just happening in hearing rooms. It was happening in the comments section, in living rooms, in the eyes of neighbors who now looked away. Back at the courthouse, Cassie left the cafeteria with one thought circling her mind. Silence might keep her comfortable, but it would also keep the pattern intact. And patterns didn't break themselves. She didn't know exactly when she'd speak or to whom, but she knew this. When she did, it wouldn't be to clear her name. It would be to call out a truth that was older and bigger than any one parking lot stop. By Thursday morning, the noise was impossible to ignore. Cassie's inbox had doubled overnight. Messages from reporters, advocacy groups, old colleagues, and strangers with subject lines like, "You have to speak and tell them what we've been saying for years." In the courthouse parking lot, she parked in the same reserved space where everything had started. This time, there was no patrol cruiser waiting. Still, she caught herself scanning the rearview mirror before stepping out. At 9:12 a.m., just before her first hearing, her phone buzzed with a text from Patrice. "You've been quiet long enough. Even the mayor's waiting on your words." Cassie stared at that message for a long moment. Patrice was right. Her silence had created a vacuum, and vacuums never stay empty. They get filled by other people's narratives. By noon, she had decided. She wouldn't give a press conference or stand behind a podium. She would record a single, unedited statement. No script, no spin, just her voice. At 3 p.m., she sat at her dining room table with her laptop open. Sunlight from the west windows laid a pale stripe across the wood. Patrice stood nearby but didn't speak. Cassie took a breath, hit record. "My name is Judge Cassandra Monroe," she began. "Some of you already know that. Others saw a video of me being stopped outside my own courthouse, mistaken for someone driving a stolen car. She didn't rush. She didn't perform. I've heard people call it a misunderstanding, a mistake. I want to be clear. It was not a fluke. It was the result of a system that moves fast on assumptions and slow on accountability. I stayed calm that morning, not because I wasn't angry, but because I know my anger can be read as a threat. I stayed calm to deny anyone the excuse to escalate what never should have started in the first place." She let the pause land. If this can happen to someone with a robe, a title, and a badge, imagine how often it happens to people without them. People who don't have 3 angles of video, or a network of colleagues, or a platform that makes the public care. Cassie didn't name Brandon Cole. She didn't have to. "I am not here to ruin careers. I am here to protect dignity, mine, and that of everyone who's been told they don't belong in their own car, their own job, or their own life. We cannot keep telling people to comply their way into safety when the rules for compliance change depending on who's looking at you. She ended simply, "Do better. See people before you judge them. See people before you stop them. See people. Period." She hit upload, first to the court's official YouTube channel, then to her personal accounts. Within an hour, the clip had 50,000 views. By evening, it was playing on Atlanta's evening news. Commentators debated whether she'd politicized the incident or spoken the plain truth. The hashtag #C people started trending alongside #Judge Monroe. Not all responses were kind. Some accused her of pulling the race card or making it about herself. Cassie didn't reply to those. She knew you couldn't argue someone out of a worldview they'd built to protect themselves. At the Macon Police Department, the statement landed like a weight. Internal Affairs had already completed their review. Cole had violated procedure by escalating before verification and ignoring visible indicators, like her courthouse permit, that contradicted his suspicion. With the public pressure mounting, Chief Lionel Garrick made the call. Friday morning, at a short press briefing, he stood at the podium. After reviewing the full incident, including body cam footage and dispatch logs, we have determined that Officer Brandon Cole's actions were inconsistent with department training and policy. Effective immediately, Officer Cole's employment with the Macon Police Department is terminated. A reporter asked if Cole had apologized to Judge Monroe. Garrick's answer was brief. He declined to make a formal statement. Cassie watched the press conference from her chambers, Patrice standing beside her. She didn't cheer. She didn't feel vindicated. The termination was accountability, yes, but it was also a reminder of how far past due the bill had been. That afternoon, she made one more decision. She asked Internal Affairs to arrange a private meeting with Cole. Not to reconcile, not to forgive, but to understand. 2 days later, they sat across from each other in a small municipal conference room. No uniforms, no robes, just a table between them. Cole's shoulders were hunched, his eyes tired. "I'm not here to punish you," Cassie began. "I need to know why." He swallowed. "I thought you didn't belong in that car. I didn't stop to ask. I've probably done it before. A lot." Cassie nodded once. "Then you understand. You didn't expose me. You exposed the system that made you certain before you had facts." They sat in silence for a beat. Before she left, she told him, "You may never wear a badge again, but you still have choices every day. Don't waste them." The Monday after her meeting with Brandon Cole, Cassie walked into the courthouse through the public entrance instead of the side door reserved for judges. The security line was long but calm. When she reached the metal detector, the young officer manning the desk looked her in the eye and said, "Good morning, Judge Monroe." He didn't mumble it. He didn't say it like it was an obligation. He said it like he meant it. Upstairs, her docket was full. Life inside the courtroom moved on. Custody disputes, probation reviews, arguments over evidence. But outside the courthouse, the incident was still fueling conversations in places Cassie would never see. Sunday sermons, civic classes, high school debate clubs. By midweek, Mayor Rochelle Temple announced the creation of an independent commission to review Macon's police stop protocols and complaint resolution process. "This is not the first incident of its kind," she said. "Our goal is to make it the last ignored until a camera's rolling." It was a cautious promise, but it was more than she'd expected this soon. The Macon NAACP invited Cassie to speak at a town hall that Thursday. She accepted, but with a condition. "I'm not coming to talk about what happened to me. I'm coming to talk about what keeps happening to everybody else." That evening, standing at the pulpit of a packed Baptist church, she kept her words simple. Stop thinking a title or a robe should be what earns someone protection, she told the crowd. Demand a system that protects people because they are people, before they're verified, before they're famous, before someone presses record. Applause came slow but steady. Afterward, an elderly woman pressed a folded note into Cassie's hand. "You walk like my mother told me to. Head high, back straight. Keep going. You're changing more than you know." Back at home that night, Cassie set the note on her dresser. Patrice leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "You realize you've become the person people quote now, right?" Cassie smiled faintly. "If they're quoting me, I hope they're quoting the part about seeing people before you judge them." In the weeks that followed, the changes began. Not seismic shifts, but small, deliberate moves. The police department implemented a mandatory verification before escalation policy for all stops. Rookie officers were required to attend implicit bias training taught by an outside facilitator. A community liaison position was added to the complaint review board. Cassie knew policy wasn't a cure-all. Training could be forgotten. New rules could be bent. But the work had to start somewhere. And for once, it was starting while people were still paying attention. One Friday morning, she parked in the same space as always. The air was crisp, the lot quiet. No cruiser blocking her in, no flash of lights in the mirror. She stepped out, robe over one arm, briefcase in the other, and crossed to the courthouse steps without interruption. Halfway up, she paused, not because she was nervous, but because she was aware. Aware that the same pattern that had caught her in its teeth could still catch someone else tomorrow. Aware that the only reason she was walking free and unchallenged was because the world had been watching. She thought about a question that had lingered since that morning in the lot. What is justice if it only works when someone's looking? Maybe it wasn't about perfect justice. Maybe it was about persistent pressure, pushing until the reflex to see threat first was replaced by the reflex to see a person. Cassie reached the top of the steps. Inside, her courtroom awaited. Wooden benches, the state flag, the gavel that was hers to wield. The robe went on, the docket was called, and the work continued. But now, behind every ruling, there was a deeper conviction. The law wasn't just something she upheld from the bench. It was something she had to demand on the sidewalk, in the parking lot, and in the minds of the people sworn to enforce it. Because no one should have to flash a title to be treated with respect. And if her story had taught the city anything, she hoped it was this. Seeing people is the first step toward changing the way we treat them.